So last time around, the BT200X with the 212 Ghost did right around 50 miles an hour. I think it was 48.94 top speed and 4.22 0 to 30. And the only modifications done to the Ghost were a rev limiter delete with a billet flywheel, a 24mm PWK carb, a header pipe, and a juggernaut. So this time around, to see if we can beat up on the Ghost for around the same price, I'm gonna build this Predator 224. So I'm going to use the billet flywheel, the 24mm PWK carb, and the header pipe off of the Ghost. And I'm also going to use an EC Carbs Pinnacle rod and a DIY Performance rev kit. So let's look at the numbers real quick on the cost comparison or the price comparisons between the Ghost and the Predator 224. So the Predator 224 is $179. And then you have the rev kit, which is $139, and then the billet rod, $84.95, billet flywheel, $120, PWK 24mm carb, $32.99, and then the exhaust around $35, for a total of $590.94. Then you have the Ghost, which is $329, and of course $0 for the rev kit. It doesn't have a billet rod, so $0. And then it's going to use the exact same flywheel, so $120. And then it's going to use the exact same carb, $32.99, and then the same header pipe, $35. So you end up with a cost of $516.99 for a difference between the two of $73.95. So they're very similar in price. Basically, the $73.95 is paying for the billet rod in the Predator 224, which is definitely going to be better than the cast rod in the Ghost. So the DIY Performance Kit includes a Superman Series 265 cam that's already clearanced for the Predator 224. So that should make it nice and easy. Then you have the 26-pound springs, shaft-mounted rockers, nice lightweight aluminum push rods. So you're not going to have any valve float with these. Then you have the automotive style retainer and keeper kit to go along with the valves. And these are nice stem down valves. So these things should flow really well. Then you have the lifters and then a 12 thousandths head gasket and then all the other gaskets. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the Predator 224 apart and I'll install all these parts and we'll see if it's worth it to spend the extra $73.95 and a few hours time. All right, so we pretty much got it down to bare block. So now the only thing I have to do is block those governor holes and then pull this rod out of here. And I think I'll do it without pulling the piston out. I'll just do it from the bottom side. Grab that clip out of there. All right, there it is. Pull this wrist pin out of here. Okay. So on this head, if you look at the stock valves versus the automotive style, these are stemmed down quite a bit. So they're definitely going to flow a lot better than the stock valve. And then another way I could make this head flow a lot better too is if you feel under here on the port floor, you can feel a ridge. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave it because the Ghost wasn't ported either. So it'll be more of a fair comparison. And then I can do that in a future video. So now I'll go ahead and lap these valves in and install the valve springs. The little valve grinding compound on here. Got that nice line on there. So I'll go ahead and do the other side. Got the nice line on that side. So now I'll throw the springs on here. Yeah, I tell you what, this tool from Amazon sure makes it nice for these automotive style split keepers. All right, there's one. Okay, there's number two. Throw these rocker arm studs on here. I'll throw a little bit of Loctite out on just to make sure. And that's a pretty nice setup. So on these governor holes, I use a 1/4 inch by 20 button head bolt on the flywheel side, just so I don't have any contact with the flywheel. And I usually throw some red Loctite on here. And these bolts will self-tap in here in this soft aluminum on these blocks. So there's that one. And then the top here, the same thing. I use another 1/4 by 20 on the top. Throw a little Loctite on here. Red Loctite. Yeah, these self-tap pretty easy down in here. Alright, so there's the top one. And then on the front hole, I'll use a 7/16 by 14 tap. And then I'll just run a bolt in here with a washer with some red Loctite on it. And I'll just tap this hole here. So once I get that tapped, then I'll use an Allen bolt with the washer and about a 1/2 inch long bolt. Then I'll throw some red Loctite on here. Okay, so there's the governor holes plugged. And then the crank here, I'll usually knock off that governor gear. No need leaving it on there. There we go. So the crank pin on here is supposed to measure 1.180. And this one's spot on. Measure it in multiple places. 1.180. Install these bearing inserts, and I try to get them right in the middle. Same on the rod. Then I'll torque the rod cap down with the bearing inserts in the rod, and then I'll measure it and subtract the two. And according to the EC Pinnacle rod instructions, you're looking for 2 to 4 thousandths. So that's 2.5 right there. 2.5 right there. Yeah, so this one's definitely in spec. You can usually tell right away if these are in spec or not. And I haven't had one yet that isn't, but I guess you never know. I'll go ahead and install this rod in here. Throw some oil on it. Install this clip. I'll install this crank. Throw some oil on this rod cap. Oil up the rod bolts. I tighten the rod bolts to 60, and then now I do 15 inch-pound increments until I get to 150 inch-pounds, alternating between the bolts, 15 at a time. So now I'll add another 15, and I'll repeat the process until I get to 150. Okay, I have arrived at 150 inch-pounds. This engine turns over totally with zero clearancing. On my last Predator 224 build, I had to clearance the block and the cylinder. But this one here with this rod, totally clears. If you look at the oil dipper there, that thing has all kinds of clearance. That thing is quite a ways from the block. Come around. If you look up in the cylinder there, there's quite a few thousandths between the cylinder and the rod. So if you look at the top up here, where the rod runs next to the cylinder, it clears, but it doesn't quite have the clearance as it does on the bottom side. So I'll probably take the Dremel to that area just to be sure. So let me throw the cam in here and we'll see what happens. So this Superman series is also clearanced for the 224. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing spins over. We'll see. So we'll see what happens. Totally turns over with no issues. So now I'll go ahead and grind that area down there. So that looks like it turned out pretty good. Give us a few extra thousandths to play with there. So I don't know if you can see it on camera, but that looks a lot better. Throw these lifters in here that came with the rev kit. Drop in this cam. Pull this flywheel off this ghost really quick. So put it on the 224. Yeah, puller makes it nice. Use my homemade crank holding tool. The little valve grinding compound on here. Install the stock key because we already have 32 degrees timing on the flywheel. Torque this down to 66 foot-pounds, not 65, but 66. Set this coil gap to 60. So these head studs were not included in the price of the 224 compared to the Ghost. So with the head studs, you're closer to around $100 difference compared to the Ghost. But they're good to have if you have a high compression engine. And this here is going to have pretty good compression because it's going to run a 12 thousandths head gasket, and then the piston comes up to 0 deck with this rod. 12 thousandths head gasket. Torque these to 200 inch-pounds. Throw in these aluminum push rods, and these things are super light. So you're definitely not going to have any valve float with these 26-pound springs and these super light valve train components. Throw a little Loctite on these. So I'm going to set the valve lash at 3 on this. I didn't see a cam card in the box. My Superman series cam called for 3 thousandths on the intake and the exhaust. So pretty much got her buttoned up, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it might not run good, but at least it looks good. I mean, that's all that really counts. So now I'll throw the side cover on this and throw it back on the bike. But first, one of the most important things, as we all know, gotta straighten out this sticker. Okay, there we go. Now we can throw it on the bike. So it sounds pretty good, so let me see if I can beat up on 4.220 to 30 and 48.94 top speed. And we're starting out with the exact same tune the Ghost had. So it's probably not the best tune, but it's a tune. It has a 38 pilot and a 115 main, so it's probably gonna run a little bit lean, but we'll find out. It feels pretty good. So I already changed out the oil and did a few heat cycles through it. So it has clean oil, so if it blows up, we could always wish that it hadn't. I'm gonna do a 0 to 30 real quick. Feels pretty quick. The first 0 to 30 and 3.66. So it smoked the Ghost in the first 0 to 30 because we had to beat 4.22. So now we're way into the threes. So now we're going to do a top speed real quick just to see where we're at with this tune-up. So we're going to beat 48.94. So we already beat the top speed through the neighborhood. We did 52.50 so far. So I'll see what it does down the street here. So far we did what, 56 miles an hour, pretty close. So we beat the Ghost by what, 8 miles an hour so far. Surprised it runs as good as it does with this tune-up. pretty good runner. So the bike got quite a bit faster and quite a bit quicker with the 224. So last time around with the 24mm PWK carb on the Ghost, did 4.22 0 to 30 and 48.94 top speed. Then I added the Predator 224 and we dropped down to 3.66, so it's quite a bit quicker on the bike. And then we gained a lot of top speed, 55.78. So I'm sure I could jet up the 24mm and probably gain a little bit of top speed. But instead, I'm just going to go ahead and throw a 28mm PWK on there. We'll see what happens.
A few minutes later.
So look at this 28mm PWK on here. And this one has a 38 pilot. So the same pilot, but a 120 main. So we'll see if this makes a difference. On another note, with this thumb throttle that he has on here, on both carbs, I'm only able to get probably 7/8 throttle. Because the throw or the swing on this thing is just not big enough. Because if you adjust the cable out, either there or on the carb, then you start pulling the slide up and it won't idle. So the throw is not really long enough. So I'm not really sure how to adjust that. But anyway, so on both carbs, we were only getting around 7/8 throttle. So at least it's the same. It's consistent for the testing. So I'll take the bike back out and I'll see if I can beat 55.78 top speed and 3.66 0 to 30. We'll see if that 120 jet and the 28mm carb make a difference. It feels pretty good. Okay, let me see if I can beat 3.66 with a 28mm. Oh man, this thing's got a lot of torque. Just did another wheelie. Try that one more time. 0 to 30, 28mm. Predator 224. Okay, we did a 3.87. I mean, it's very similar, but I kind of had to roll into it. Let me try that again. I'm sure I could get the same time as the 24mm. Let me see if I can get a better launch on this. All right, second attempt. 0 to 30, 28mm on the Predator 224. Did a 4-second flat on that one. Let me try that again. All right, third attempt, 0 to 30. There we go. That was a good launch. A 3.81. I mean, I would say it's similar as far as quickness goes to the 28 and the 24. Generally, the smaller carbs, it seems like they're quicker anyway. I mean, they have more throttle response. But I guess it just depends on the setup. But anyway, let me do a top speed, and we'll see if we can beat 55.78 with the 28mm and that 120 jet. Take it down that same road here. Yeah, definitely likes the 24 better, or at least the 115 jet at 3,700 foot elevation. Yeah, it seems to like the 24 better, but then again, it could be the main size because sometimes up here at 3,700 foot, I get away with a lot smaller main jet. So I mean, the 28 might work better with a 115 main. So the bike slowed down on both counts with the 28mm and the 120 main. So with the 24mm and the 115 main 38 Pilot, we did 3.66 0 to 30 and 55.78. Then I installed the 28mm with the 120 main and 38 Pilot, and we dropped to 3.87. So a little bit slower, and then we definitely dropped some top speed, 52.23. So if I install the 115 main and the 28mm, it's possible it could gain its top speed back. I mean, every combo is different. My 223 or 224 actually likes the 28mm better, but it has a bigger cam and a ported head, so I think it just depends on the combo. But anyway, the premise of this video was to compare the Ghost to the Predator 224 with the same tune and similar price or similar cost. So the Predator 224 definitely outperformed the Ghost on both counts with the same tune. So is it worth the extra $100 for the Predator 224? Or is it better just to buy a Ghost and slap it on the bike and not have to build an engine? Let me know down in the comments what you think.